I wish I could tell you I sensed something was wrong. I wish I could say there was a sign, a premonition, a strange dream the night before. But there wasn't. There was only a quiet Saturday morning, the kind where sunlight filters through the curtains and the world seems still, like it's holding its breath. I was just a mother picking up her son. The plan was simple. Peter had spent the night at his friend Ethan's. They'd played video games, probably stayed up too late, maybe eaten too much junk food. Typical teenage boys. He was supposed to be ready by 10. I brought his favorite muffins, still warm, in a napkin-lined basket. He liked the lemon poppy seed ones best. But when I pulled up to the house, something felt off. Their street was usually so lively. Bicycles on lawns, a dog barking, the occasional parent shouting for someone to bring in the trash bins. That day, it was silent. Not Sunday morning kind of silent, eerie silent. I parked and walked up the drive. Ethan's family lived in a modest 2-story home with red shutters and an overgrown bougainvillea that crept along the fence. The porch light was still on, flickering faintly in daylight. I knocked once, twice. No answer. I tried calling Peter's phone. Nothing. Straight to voicemail. "Hi, sweetheart, I'm outside. Ready when you are." I waited. Nothing. I tried the doorbell. The chime rang out inside, followed by silence. That's when I tried the handle. It was locked, and that's when the panic set in. I knocked harder, pressing my ear to the door. No footsteps, no voices, not even the low hum of a television or the rattle of a cereal box. I walked to the side of the house, called again. Still voicemail. I left another message, trying to keep my voice calm. My breath quickened as I checked the windows, every curtain drawn tight, every blind shut. A creeping, icy thought whispered, "Something is wrong." I walked to the backyard. The gate was ajar. That detail lodged in my brain like a thorn. The yard was empty. Then I heard it. Distant sirens, not one, but several, and they were getting closer. My heart dropped. I sprinted to the front of the house and scanned the street just as the first ambulance rounded the corner, then a police cruiser, then another. And when they stopped, right there, right in front of me, everything slowed. A young officer stepped out, his uniform crisp, his eyes already heavy with something I didn't want to name. "Ma'am, are you Helen Carr?" "Yes," I said, though my voice didn't sound like mine. "I'm Peter Carr's mother. He's here. He stayed the night. What's going on?" He didn't answer. Instead, he looked over his shoulder at the other officers. Then, from behind them, a man stepped out in a white coat. Not a police officer, a doctor. His face was drawn tight, pale. He approached slowly, like someone walking through fog. "Mrs. Carr," he said quietly, "are you ready to hear this?" I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. And I didn't know yet. Oh, God, I didn't know that my son was already gone. You know, the mind does strange things when it doesn't want to accept something. It stalls. It grabs onto the smallest detail, like the flicker of that porch light or the feel of the warm muffin basket still in my hand, and clings to it as if it could undo the rest. That was me, standing on a cracked concrete walkway, holding baked goods and denial. The doctor's voice was low, deliberate. "There was an incident early this morning," he said, eyes darting nervously toward the house. "Ethan's parents found the boys unresponsive when they came down to check on them. It appears they both—" He paused, swallowed hard. "Ingested something. Something. That word. It floated like smoke in the air between us. Not food, not medicine, something. I knew what he meant even before he said it. Fentanyl, laced pills, accidental overdose. That's the language we use now, the vocabulary of modern grief." "No," I whispered. "No, he doesn't do that. Peter doesn't do that." He was already gone when the paramedics arrived. "I'm so sorry." I remember making a sound. a raw, keening sound that didn't feel human. I dropped the basket. The muffins tumbled onto the driveway. I barely noticed the officer catching me by the elbow. My legs buckled. You never imagine your child will die before you. No matter how old they get, that's not the order of things. You raise them, you protect them, you outlive the dangers. You believe in that illusion even when you know better, even when the world proves otherwise. Peter was 16. 16. I thought of his chipped tooth from when he fell off his bike at 7, and how he refused to get it fixed because he said it made him look cool. I thought of how he used to fall asleep on the sofa with his mouth open, snoring like a little truck engine. I thought of the time he brought me a dandelion from the schoolyard and told me I was the best person in the whole galaxy. I had just bought him new socks. Isn't that strange? The details that come flooding in. I stood there thinking, he never even wore those socks. I was going to ask him to pick up his laundry. I didn't hug him tight enough when I dropped him off. And now, he was just gone. Everything else blurred. The detectives asked questions. I barely answered. A woman in a pantsuit handed me a card with her number. Support for grieving parents, she said. I wanted to rip it in half. I didn't want resources. I wanted my boy. By noon, I was sitting in the emergency waiting area, staring at a white wall, wondering how many parents had sat here before me, going through the same silent horror. That's when Ethan's mother walked in. Amanda. We'd done bake sales together, PTA meetings. She was tall, blonde, always composed, but not today. Today, she looked like she'd aged a decade in a few hours. Her blouse was stained with something, coffee maybe, and her lipstick had smeared in a way that made her look almost childlike. She sat beside me without asking, didn't say a word for a long time. Then finally, they found pills in Ethan's drawer, hidden in a shoebox under old baseball cards. I couldn't speak. We didn't know, she said, voice trembling. God help us, Helen, we didn't know. But I did. Somewhere in the deep pit of my stomach, I did know. I had seen the signs. I had just chosen not to understand them. The headaches, the sudden mood swings, the odd text messages at 2 a.m., the one time I smelled something bitter on his clothes and he said it was from a friend's vape. I believed him. I wanted to believe him. What parent doesn't? I was tired. I worked 2 jobs. I told myself he was a good kid because he was, but good kids can still make mistakes. Good kids can still die. That night, I stood in his room. I didn't turn the light on. I just stood there in the dark, listening to the hum of his ceiling fan and the silence that filled every corner of that space. His bed still unmade, a sweatshirt hanging from the door, his laptop charger on the floor, waiting for someone who would never come back. There is a silence that follows loss. It's not the absence of sound, it's the presence of something heavy, a silence that presses against your ribs and makes it hard to breathe. That's the silence I slept in that night, curled in his bed, clutching the hoodie that still smelled like him, lemon detergent, teenage sweat, vanilla body spray, and questions, so many questions. Where did he get the pills? Why did he take them? Did he know they were dangerous? And the worst question of all, why didn't I stop it? 3 days after Peter died, I got a call from the school counselor. She was polite, careful, her voice soft, each word handled like it might shatter. We're heartbroken, truly. Peter was such a bright young man. Was. She asked if I would be open to a memorial at the school, maybe a bench in the courtyard, a photo wall, the things schools do when a tragedy slips inside their clean hallways and refuses to leave. I said yes. I said thank you. I said all the things mothers are supposed to say when their child becomes a headline. But after I hung up, I stared at the kitchen counter for a long time. Something wasn't sitting right. That night I went looking for Peter's phone. It had been returned to me in a sealed evidence bag. I hadn't touched it. I couldn't. But now something in me needed to know. I needed answers. And I knew, God, I knew, they were in there. I opened the drawer where I'd hidden it, sat at the table, and peeled the plastic away like it might explode. The phone was cracked at the corner, but still intact. I held my breath as I powered it on. The passcode was easy. His birthday, of course. And then I was in. It was like stepping into his mind. Messages, photos, notes, videos. His life paused in pixels and time-stamped memories. I started with his texts. The recent ones were with Ethan, naturally. But as I scrolled back, my hands went cold. There was a name I didn't recognize, Jaden L., a name that kept popping up with messages that made my stomach turn. Yo, I got the blues, 2 for $60. These are clean, way better than last time. Don't be stupid, bro. Half is enough. There were Venmo transactions, too, small amounts. Emojis instead of explanations, a blue heart, a snowflake, a pill, modern hieroglyphics for something deadly. But it was a video that undid me. Peter, sitting on Ethan's bed, holding a tiny blue tablet between his fingers, laughing. "Don't worry, Mom," he joked. "I'm just trying to feel something. Chill." His voice, his laugh, frozen in that moment, still not knowing it would be his last night alive. I watched it twice, then a third time. Then I dropped the phone and buried my face in my hands. He had been trying to feel something. What hadn't I seen? What was I too distracted or too afraid to ask? The next morning, I called Amanda again. "We need to talk," I said. We met at a cafe near the school. She looked like I did, like a woman freshly hollowed out. We didn't bother with pleasantries. "I found something on Peter's phone," I said. She nodded, then slowly slid her own phone across the table. So did I. We sat there, 2 grieving mothers, each holding the ashes of what we didn't know. Ethan had texted the same boy, Jaden L. He'd asked for something stronger a week before they died. That name, Jaden. I remembered it, vaguely. From a parent-teacher night, maybe. Amanda thought he lived a few blocks from the school. Quiet kid. Older brother in juvie. We compared messages. They matched. We had a name now, a face, a source. The police had told me they were looking into it. But now I wondered if that meant anything. I couldn't just sit still. Not now. That afternoon I printed every screenshot, every payment receipt, every message. I made copies and brought them to the precinct. The woman at the front desk looked bored until she saw my face, and then she saw the papers. Within 10 minutes I was in a back office with a detective named Ruiz, a woman in her 40s with tired eyes and the kind of quiet strength you don't learn in training. She listened. She asked questions. She took my file. "We've had 3 other incidents in the last 6 weeks," she said. "Same area, same pattern, same kind of pill." My throat tightened. "Are you saying this is bigger than just Peter and Ethan?" She nodded slowly. "I think you already know it is." That night, I sat alone on the porch, wrapped in Peter's hoodie, staring at the stars. And for the first time since he died, I felt something stronger than grief. Rage. Someone had sold my son his death, and no one, not the school, not the police, not the parents, was talking about it. It was easier to say tragic accident. It was cleaner, less ugly than what it really was, murder by apathy, and I couldn't accept that. I wouldn't. The next morning, I called Amanda again. "We have to do something," I told her. "We have to be louder than the silence." We didn't know what we were doing, not really. Just 2 grieving mothers with broken hearts and a printer, standing at the edge of something much bigger than we ever imagined. But pain has a way of making you brave, or reckless, maybe both. We started with flyers. They were simple, black and white, a photo of Peter and Ethan, two bright, smiling boys. Underneath, bold letters. This wasn't an accident. Fentanyl is killing our children. If you know anything about Jaden L., please speak up. We didn't use his full name, not yet. We weren't ready to play dirty, but we were getting close. We posted them on light poles, grocery store boards, outside the high school gym. Some were torn down by the next morning, but we just printed more. Then we spoke at the PTA meeting. Amanda read Peter's last text aloud, the one where he joked about needing to feel something. You could hear a pin drop in that room full of parents. One mother started crying, another walked out, but most just sat there, stunned, because deep down they knew, maybe not about Peter, maybe not about Jaden, but about the way these kids were experimenting with things far more dangerous than we ever had. They're not trying to get high, I said. They're trying to escape, and they don't know what's in these pills. One tablet, that's all it takes. The principal was polite. The school counselor was tight-lipped. They offered a moment of silence. But silence wasn't what we needed. A week later, we launched a website. Amanda's niece built it. Bright blue banner across the top. One pill, one life. We shared their stories, their photos. We uploaded the screenshots from Peter's phone, redacted, the payment history, the text messages. Within days, messages poured in. A teacher messaged anonymously. She'd seen kids passing tiny Ziploc bags in the hallway, but didn't want to accuse anyone without proof. A boy's older sister emailed, saying her brother bought something blue from someone named Jay a few weeks back. He'd thrown up all night but never told their parents. It was everywhere. And the more we uncovered, the more I felt a kind of panic creep in. Not just grief, not just anger, but terror. Because this wasn't just about Peter anymore. Jaden wasn't some rogue outlier. He was a symptom. A senior boy finally agreed to meet us anonymously, an old friend of Ethan's. We sat in the back booth of a diner off the highway, Amanda and I across from a tall, lanky kid with tired eyes and bitten fingernails. He spoke softly, glancing around every few seconds like someone watching for ghosts. Jaden's not the top, he said. He's middle. He gets the stuff from his cousin, real low-key guy, works construction during the day, but it's coming in from somewhere else. Whole lot of these pills moving through town. Whole lot. He reached into his hoodie and pulled out a small baggie. Inside were 2 pills, baby blue, stamped with an M and a 30. I stared at them like they were bombs. They're fake, he said. Pressed. Looks like oxy, but it's not. It's fentanyl. Strong stuff. Real easy to OD if you're not careful. Peter probably didn't even know. Amanda began to cry. I felt something shift inside me. A door that would never close again. The boy pushed the bag across the table. Do something with it, he said. I'm out. We gave it to Detective Ruiz the next morning. She handled it with gloves, her face unreadable. I'm submitting this to evidence. You understand this could escalate our case significantly. That's what we want, I said. Let it escalate. And it did. A week later, they raided Jaden's cousin's apartment. They found bags of pills, cash, a digital scale, and a list. Names, quantities, dates. Peter's name wasn't on it, but Ethan's was. Amanda called me that night, sobbing into the phone. If I hadn't said yes to that sleepover... We can't think like that, I told her, though I was thinking the same about the muffins. About the way I'd kissed Peter on the cheek without even getting out of the car. I didn't know it would be the last time. After the raid, the case hit the news. That's when the backlash started. Anonymous messages on our website, comments saying we were blaming the wrong people. One even accused us of raising junkies. Someone slashed Amanda's tires. I came home one evening to find a dead bird on my porch. The fear was real now. It slithered into everything. I started locking every door, sleeping with the lights on, jumping at shadows. But I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. Peter was dead. And someone, somewhere, was still handing out those blue pills. I didn't care how deep it went. I was going to follow it, even if it cost me everything. The arrest came on a Tuesday morning. I remember that detail because Tuesdays used to be Peter's least favorite day. Too far from the weekend, he'd say, slinging his backpack over one shoulder. When Detective Ruiz called, I was standing at the sink, rinsing a mug I hadn't actually used. "Mrs. Carr," she said. "We picked him up." For a moment I didn't understand who him was. My mind stalled, like an engine refusing to turn over. "Jaden?" I finally asked. "Yes, and 2 others. Distribution, possession with intent, involuntary manslaughter pending toxicology confirmation." I slid down into a chair. My legs felt hollow, as if they belonged to someone else. "Is it over?" I asked. There was a pause. "No," Ruiz said carefully. "But this part is." The arraignment was public. I almost didn't go. I told myself it wouldn't change anything, that it wouldn't bring Peter back. But something inside me needed to look the truth in the face, to see the human being who had handed my son a pill like it was nothing. The courtroom smelled like old wood and disinfectant. Amanda sat beside me, her hands clenched so tightly her knuckles were white. When they brought Jaden in, my breath caught. He wasn't a monster. That was the worst part. He was thin, nervous, barely older than the boys he'd sold to. His hands shook as he adjusted the cuffs. He looked like a child playing dress-up in someone else's crime. For one wild, disorienting moment, I felt pity. And then the prosecutor read the charges, and then Peter's name was spoken out loud in that room, and the pity burned away. Jaden's lawyer tried to paint it as kids making bad choices, as a tragic misunderstanding. He used words like unintentional and unforeseen. I stood up before I even realized I was moving. The judge looked startled. "Ma'am, my son is dead," I said, my voice steady in a way that surprised even me. "He is not a misunderstanding." The courtroom went silent. The judge hesitated, then nodded. "You may speak." I hadn't prepared anything. No notes, no rehearsed speech, just truth, raw and burning. "Peter was 16, I said. He liked lemon muffins and bad sci-fi movies. He was afraid of disappointing people. He trusted the wrong person once, and that was enough to end his life." I looked directly at Jaden then. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "You didn't force him," I continued. "But you didn't warn him either. You handed him poison and let him believe it was safe. And that choice, belongs to you." Amanda was crying openly now. I felt her hand on my arm, grounding me. "I don't hate you," I finished quietly, "but I will never be silent for you." The judge cleared his throat. Court adjourned. Outside, the press waited. Microphones, cameras, questions shouted like accusations. Amanda stepped back, overwhelmed. I stepped forward. "This isn't about revenge," I said into the noise. "It's about truth. Our children are dying because silence is easier than action. That ends now." That night, I went home alone. I sat on Peter's bed, holding his hoodie, the house unbearably quiet. For the first time since he died, I didn't feel like I was drowning. I felt cracked open. Justice didn't feel like triumph. It felt heavy. It felt incomplete. It felt like standing in the wreckage after a storm and realizing the cleanup will take years. But I also felt something else. Peter's story had been heard. His name had weight again. And that mattered. People say grief softens over time, that it becomes quieter, gentler, easier to carry. Maybe. I'm not sure I believe that yet. Some days it feels like a whisper. Other days it howls so loud I have to sit down just to breathe. But it changes, that much I know. I no longer wake up expecting to hear Peter's voice down the hall. I no longer set 2 plates for breakfast. I no longer check my phone for his name. But I still pause when I see a lemon muffin in the bakery window. Still flinch when a boy in a blue hoodie runs past me at the park. Grief, I've learned, is not a wound that heals. It's a second skin. You learn to live inside it. You learn to move differently, speak differently, breathe through a smaller straw, and eventually, slowly, you find ways to turn that grief into something more than just pain. Amanda and I started the One Pill, One Life Foundation a few months after Jaden's sentencing. He took a plea deal, 5 years in juvenile detention with the possibility of adult charges if further evidence emerged. Some thought it was too little. I didn't disagree, but part of me was just relieved he couldn't hurt anyone else. Not for now. The foundation began small. A table at a school fair, a booth at the farmer's market. We handed out flyers, Narcan kits, buttons with Peter and Ethan's faces. We spoke at assemblies, churches, parent support groups. We brought in experts, doctors, therapists, ex-users, mothers. I told Peter's story again and again. It never got easier. But I started noticing something. Every time I told it, someone else found their voice. A father in the back row would raise his hand and say, "My daughter overdosed last fall. We thought it was Tylenol PM. It wasn't." A mother would whisper, "My son's friends are using, but he's too afraid to say anything." A teacher would confess, "We found pill wrappers in lockers. We didn't know what to do." The silence was cracking. Truth was seeping in. And slowly, slowly, we were planting something that looked like hope. The foundation grew faster than we expected. Grants came in, a state senator reached out, schools began requesting seminars, we partnered with other families. We weren't alone anymore. One day, I found a letter in the mailbox, no return address. I opened it on the porch. "Mrs. Carr, I knew Peter. He was funny, kind. He once helped me carry my books when I dropped them in the hall. I never forgot that. I wanted to tell you I stopped using because of your talks, because of your voice, because he mattered to you. He mattered to all of us. Thank you for not letting him be forgotten." A friend I held that letter to my chest and cried, not the raw, wounded tears from the early days. These were quiet, clean, like rain on a dusty garden. Peter mattered, and because I spoke, someone else lived. That doesn't fix the ache, but it gives it purpose. Some nights I still visit his room. I light a candle and sit in his desk chair. I run my fingers over the framed photo from his 8th grade play, where he wore a paper crown and grinned like he'd just conquered the world. I talk to him sometimes. "Did you see that kid today? He came up after the seminar, said he threw away his stash. Did you hear Amanda on the radio? She made them cry. You'd be proud of us, honey. We're trying." And sometimes, in the stillness, I imagine he hears me. I imagine he knows we're fighting in his name. One day, maybe years from now, someone will stand in front of a room and say, "This used to be worse, but people spoke up, and now it's better." And maybe they'll never know about Peter, or Ethan, or the blue pills, or 2 mothers with broken hearts who refused to sit down. But I'll know, I'll remember, that in the wake of devastation, we stood up, and we kept standing, until silence gave way to truth, and truth gave way to change.